operates on the unceded and unsurrendered lands of Indigenous peoples. We recognize and honor the historic relationship of the Indigenous peoples to this land and acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within them. We recognize First Nation, Métis, and Inuit who call Belleville their home and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with them. We look forward to fostering a path towards reconciliation and show respect for the Indigenous peoples who first lived and currently live on this land where we all now reside together. For those watching us on City streaming service or YouTube channel or on your TV broadcast, I would point out that our agenda and all reports are on the City website, www.belleville.ca, under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting video on the left side of the screen. If you click on February 27th on the calendar, it will bring you up to today's agenda. There is a hyperlink on the agenda. In the event you wish to look at the reports, you can follow. I will call this meeting to order and just note that Councillor Kelly is not here. Please be seated with a moment of reflection with City Clerk Matt McDonald.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Yeah. Please be seated. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, I need a motion for the reading and confirmation of minutes of the regular council meeting of February 13th, 23, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of February 13th, 23. Councillor Chatton, Councillor Brown, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Deputations, we have here Hastings County CAO Jim Pine, Hastings County Reeve Mullins, and EOWC Chair Peter Eamon. Gentlemen? And the warden is here also, I see in the audience.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you today about the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus 7 in 7 Regional Housing Plan. As the 2023 chair for the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, I'm pleased to be here today and to be joined by my colleague Warden Bob Mullen, who I think you know very well, and CAO Jim Pine. I know you know Jim very well, and Meredith Stavely Watson. She's our caucus manager of government relations and policy. I know our time with you today is short, and we're going to share the podium, so I'll just get started. I believe that I can safely assume that housing, and particularly the lack of affordable housing, is one of your council's top concerns. I know it is for the 13 members of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. In fact, tackling the housing and related homelessness issues is our primary priority as a group. There's a chronic and serious supply problem of not only regular housing, but community or social housing across our region. That is certainly true here in Hastings County. Wait lists for community housing continue to grow. Across Eastern Ontario, we know that there are between 12 and 14,000 households in desperate need of access to community housing that our municipalities operate. People in our community on the community housing lists, whether it's here or in my county in Renfrew, are left waiting on average 4.5 years, and in some cases up to 10 years to get access to safe, affordable community housing. Each of us in our jurisdictions have been doing our best over the years to try and tackle this supply challenge. While we've made progress, it's just not enough to solve the problem. That's why the Wardens Caucus has come together to put our collective resources and experience into a bold new regional solution. It's big, and it's definitely bold, and it's doable. And to give you the details, I would like to turn this over to Jim Pine.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council. It's great to be here. I will walk you through this plan. We have a little bit of a slide project or that will help you with as we walk through. Sorry. So as Chair Eamon said, the EOWC represents the 13 counties of Eastern Ontario, and of course the City of Belleville, City of Cornwall, other separated cities, I think, have an interest in this project as well, obviously, in terms of the housing. But it's an area and a project that is pretty extensive and expansive across, really, it's 50,000 square kilometers that we're really talking about in Eastern Ontario, and about 1.5 million people. As the chair has said, we've been working together as a group in the EOWC around the issue of wait lists and people who are waiting such a long time. And we've put together some statistics around, what is the real problem. And as the chair indicated, between 12 and 14,000 folks are on our current list, and unfortunately this number is probably low. It's been growing. Our numbers in Hastings County are up since the last time we did this calculation with our partners. But it's clear, I guess, in terms of the need, that it's something that we need to try and tackle together. So we also understand that the province wants to build about 1.5 million homes across Ontario to try and deal with the issue of the supply problem. Where the wardens come in is that there's another segment of the population that we believe needs support and housing, and that's the folks who are on our social housing, our community housing wait lists. And we think that it's time for us to collectively come together to try and solve for the problem, as the chair has indicated. We've been working, as he said, in our own jurisdictions, like here in Hastings County, on your behalf, in our jurisdiction, to try and solve. And we've been able to build some housing over the years, but just not enough. And with the wait list continuing to grow, we've come together to try and do this in a regional way as a group of municipalities. And we hope the City of Belleville will support us in this in terms of the plan. We see the opportunity to build about 7,000 affordable units that are really rent-geared to income units. And in the experience that many of us have had in our jurisdictions working with the private sector, when we've been able to partner with them and work together, they will build additional units on their own at the market rate rent, so at the market rent. So we think this is a perfect opportunity to come together with the private sector and government to build out what really would be, at the end of the day, about 28,000 units across the region. So that's the scale. Interestingly, just towards the middle of January, Scotiabank came out with their global economics review, particularly on the topic of social housing. And so this is one of the top 5 banks in the country speaking about their research. And they're saying that Canada at least needs to double its current supply of social housing stock. It's the best solution to unlock greater supply. So this idea of working with the private sector, I think, is also a part of their view. It'll help prices generally. But I think it's the 4th point that I found the most interesting. And that is, they're saying to government, and largely the federal and provincial governments, is that they need much higher rates of what they call concessionality, which is really investment. That the federal and provincial governments need to invest more in this type of housing in order to help us get us built, because of not only the ability to house people, but all the social and health benefits that come with people who are properly housed. It's just so important to do it. And it's the most cost-efficient way for governments in the long run to try and solve for the problem. So here we have Scotiabank really backing up what the Wardens Caucus is suggesting is a good solution that is involved in a public-private approach to doing this. So it is a bold investment. I'm going to speak to you now about some of the details. So it'll include an investment from the members of the EOWC. It'll include, of course, the federal and provincial governments, the private sector, and we can't forget the not-for-profit sector as an important player in providing community and social housing and affordable housing. The cost for the 7,000 units is about $3.1 billion. That's based on a sort of pro forma cost per unit of about $440,000. We validated that number across the region in terms of what we think the cost to build per unit is. This doesn't include the cost of servicing if we had to add additional servicing or land. So it's the raw build, but it gives us a number that can put some scale to it. The other important piece of this is retail housing or housing itself is one of the best multipliers in the economy. So we had some research done that look at it, said it has about a 3 times multiplier. So if we're spending about $3 billion to get 7,000 units built, generates a multiplier effect of about $9 billion in the economy. And of course, building houses in local communities like Belleville or in Sterling Rawdon or in Bancroft, for instance, the folks who build those things are often people who live in our own communities now, the trades folks. So we think there's tremendous benefit on the multiplier side as well for a project like this. So how are we going to do it? Well, we're building on some experience that we've had with Eastern Ontario Regional Network in terms of big, broad projects. What we did the first time around with our first EORN project was divide the region into zones and ran RFP zones or procurement models based on the zone. So we just had an idea this could be the kind of project that worked well in terms of building out in zones to get, we think, better pricing and better interest from the private sector particularly. So we just simply divided up Eastern Ontario into zones, 6 zones. You can just see how we've done that, the different colors, and then allocated the $3.1 billion. We think of it as an investment. So the investment, you can see how it might come out across the region based on our percentage share of the wait list is really how we did it. So for the Hastings, Lennox, and Addington and Prince Edward County zone, as we framed it, we can see a spend of about $813 million to do the 7 and 7 for our region. You can see how it worked across the rest of the province. So a significant financial investment in the region, and then we broke it out by zone. In terms of how would we allocate the 7,000 units for building, again, trying to make sure that every zone gets a benefit, and the communities in it, rural and urban, are going to get a benefit from this kind of project. We took their percentage share of the overall social housing wait lists, and I just calculated out the numbers. So in our area, in Hastings County, Prince Edward and Lennox and Addington, you can see about 1,800 or so of the 7,000 units we expect would be allocated for our zone. And you can see what it would look like across the region. So this will change, I'm sure. This is just a simple model of trying to give you an idea what it could look like, but it seems like a reasonably fair way to approach it in terms of the allocation. And we know we're going to build where the need is. So yes, you're going to certainly get units built through this here in the city. We're going to build in Trenton. We're going to build in other parts of Hastings County. We have to make sure that rural communities get the benefit as well. Of course, as the large urban, but largely we got to go where the need is for obvious reasons. So what Belleville's particular share of this is to be determined, but you know that the largest portion of social housing is here in the city at this current time. So just to give it a little more detail, I broke it down in our particular zone to see what the allocation might be by county. So there's 3 counties involved in the Hastings, Lennox, and Addington and Prince Edward zone. The HLAP just came out that way. But so of the 1854, we would have on the same basis of the allocation about 1,400 units in Hastings, just under 300 in Lennox and Addington, about 156 in Prince Edward County. And again, this is just a representative way to try and figure out how we might allocate these things, but we'll get into really into the details when we get the money going forward. And I've done the same for on the cost side. So that $800 million, 620 would be spent in Hastings County, 128 in Lennox and Addington, and you can see 68 or so in Prince Edward County. It's really based on the number of units being built. So it's got, as I said, the opportunity to drive the economy forward for a long time. We know we've got to do this over about 7 years in terms of how it will be built. We're only tackling about 50% of the need because we have a wait list that's about 14,000 at the moment. So, but we think it's a pretty good start. We haven't seen any other government or organization with a plan to try and tackle this segment of the housing continuum. And I think that's because it's our lane to be in as local governments, is to try and deal with that segment of the population who need community housing. And so it's fallen to the Warden's Caucus and the cities to try and make this a reality. But it's got the potential to really drive the economy forward, and public-private partnerships will be key to it. We think we've got some good cred as an organization on this in delivering big budgets and big projects through the EORN network and working with the East Ontario Leadership Council. And we do think it's really set for and designed for a regional approach. We've retained a consulting firm called KWM to help us with the business case. They're very well experienced in this field. We're working with them right now to work out, specifics and details, but we're out talking about the idea to make sure that you're aware of it, and hopefully that you'll be interested in working with us as we try to make it come to a reality. These are pictures you're probably familiar with here in Belleville. These are buildings that we've worked with the private sector in the last number of years to construct. And this is the kind of model that we think can work very well across the whole of the project, where we bring the private sector together with government, all three levels, and drive this project forward. So we're on a path to move forward during the winter months as we're in now. We're building the business case. We're out speaking to governments, including your own and the federal and provincial governments. We met with folks in the province, at Roma particularly. We've got a lot of work to do in terms of consultations, and we know that First Nations Indigenous consultations are pretty important or critical. So we'll be starting that effort soon as well. And we're planning potentially the launch of a pilot in the fall, just to prove the concept of this, and in order to convince both levels of government that this is a worthy investment. And we think it is. It's a short-term investment. It's substantial, but it has huge payoffs going forward. And if we don't do something about it, we know exactly what the answer is going to be, a continuing problem that we just don't solve for. So we thought now's the time to do it. We know that strong communities require everyone to participate, and everyone needs a place to call home. So with that, I'm going to call on, unless there's any questions, I can call on His Honor to make some final remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mr. Pine. Just a question. So, great idea. Certainly, it's something we have to do and start that conversation. I'm not convinced the province has really looked at social housing in their $1.5 million plan, and they've left a lot up to the private sector. And interestingly enough, we here in Belleville had one building permit issued in January, so the private sector is certainly not stepping up to the plate. With that, the question I have is, you talk about incentives for an additional 21,000 in attainable market rent units.
Correct.
Can you describe a little bit as to what the attainable portion is and how you might incentivize the private sector for those builds?
Sure. In the buildings that I showed you just a few minutes ago, we participate in support for funding for a number of units in those buildings. When we were able to do that, the private sector was able to find a way to then, on their profit side, decide that it was a good business for them to join with us. So when we put public money into a project, as long as it's the right amount, and typically what we found is that about, and we want to drive this number as low as we can, but about 70% needs to be public money in order for the private sector to participate. We think we can do better than that, perhaps by a few points at least, in working with government and the private sector as well. But typically, so there's got to be public investment in order to make that, I guess, profit work for the private sector. But what we found is in most cases where that's come together, we've got about a 3-to-1. So for every unit that we were able to incent to be built, they've added 3 of their own. So you end up with the 28. Now that's our target. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Pine. I'm curious, within our first meeting for Community and Human Services, we identified that we had about 2,800 people on the wait list for Hastings County in terms of social or subsidized housing. And at our last meeting, it was actually updated to 3,200. It's growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So can you offer, and as you mentioned, it's only addressing about 50% of the current need. But if we look at, this is 7,000 over 7 years, are we not anticipating that that number may continue to grow exponentially, and that our targets on the 7,000, while admirable, wish a lot of places could get 7,000 locations built, affordable homes. Do you feel that we're actually going to make a discernible difference in the need for the subsidized or social housing? Or is the problem just going to continue to grow beyond our capabilities?
I think we are going to make a discernible difference. If we can house 7,000 households who can't be housed now, that's, I think, a tremendous goal to achieve. It's not enough, no question. We know that it's not enough. But it's about all we can bite off at this point, we think, in terms of at least getting a good start. Unfortunately, I think the issue of housing is going to be with us for a long time, but we need to at least make a start to try and do something significant. If we could do 14,000, if governments came back to us and said 7,000 is not enough, I think you'd find that there'd be a lot of support for doing more. But we just thought that this was a pretty significant effort for a group of municipalities to do. It would be great if we could end wait lists. I think that would be, my ultimate goal would be that there'd be no more wait lists, that we'd have enough housing for everybody. But it is an iterative process, I think, and going forward. But that's why we're here. That's what government's for, in my humble opinion, is to continue to try and solve a problem that we have. So we're trying to make as big a step as we can in this first step.
Councillor, sorry, is that good? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Pines, for coming. Great to see you again. I commend you. I really think this is really what we need to start, because cities can't do this on their own anymore. It's just absolutely impossible. Belleville needs it. We need to get the provinces involved. We need to get the feds involved. But so this bringing us together, I think, is a major step for us, really. And we'll never solve the housing problem. I'm convinced we'll never solve it totally. But if we can do this number, that's certainly a big start. You know, been on the social service committee for a number of years. We've set goals, and unless we get a regional like this, it can't happen. My question is, do you feel that there's developers like Phil Spry, I'm going to use his name, in other communities that are willing to get in on this? Because without guys like Phil Spry and Bob Cottrell, this can't happen. So you feel there's enough of these people in the different regions to fulfill this need?
I think I could ask the chair and his worship or his honor to answer that as well. But I say yes. That's there are more Phils and Bobs out there. I think, you know, thankfully they're here right now in our community. But we'll find out. There's no question, though, they're private sector and they need to make a profit, and we totally understand that. So we got to work together to try and find that sweet spot. We think this is a sweet spot for them. It's in everybody's interest in order to, you know, it's just good for our communities to have enough housing. And so, yeah, I'm confident there are, and that's part of the reason, if we're doing it at scale, that might interest some more individuals, companies.
And the other aspect I'm concerned with is the market rent and the subsidized rent. As time moves on, that scale changes. Are we building that in our plan? How those numbers are definitely going to change over the 7 years.
Yeah. I think the answer is yes. It's always going to be a factor, going to be an issue. But as Scotiabank said, that only by adding supply can you drive price down.
Yeah.
And we need to add supply in order to help the prices come down. It has I think it has a knock-on benefit for across the whole rental market in itself. This project. So. If we could add 28,000 new units, that's got to have an impact on price. We know the answer if we don't do anything. We know the answer collectively, so hopefully this is a good start at trying to find a solution. Thanks, Carmen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Pine and Mr. Evan, for your presentation today. We really appreciate it, and I'm very excited that this is a plan that begins to address on a real scale the challenges that we have. And so I have a couple questions. The first one relates to the wait list that we have now of 3,200 individuals. If we're talking about in the Hastings County area, something like 1,864 units, how many people would we have in each of those units, and would that maybe go further than on first appearance to reduce that wait list?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The wait list is built on households, not individuals. So there actually might be more than, I think actually the last number I got was just around 3,200, so the one that we got at the committee. So there's probably more individuals than the 3,200 would speak to. The more you take off, the better. We'll have a mix of singles, family units, single bedrooms, 2 and probably 3, maybe some 4. So we're trying to deal with families as well as individuals at the same point. Because not every household is a single person, it might be multiples.
Absolutely. And then as it relates to the $3.1 billion figure, has there been a significant amount of interest from the federal and provincial government? Have those talks occurred? Have they expressed that there's interest and or capacity in order to do that?
Well, I say there's lots of interest. We've met with the federal minister of housing, actually Meredith and I, and Jerry Eamon, I think, might have been on that same call. He expressed an interest in the way we're approaching this from a regional point of view. We've met with, I can't remember the number of cabinet ministers now, provincially, quite a few, to talk about it. So there's all interest. They're looking for details, I think, and we're getting closer to the details. But we think it's just a good idea whose time has come, and I think that they'll see that the same. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
No one's told us not to come and talk to them anymore.
That's
that's
certainly encouraging. And then, finally, as it, I've forgotten the question. I'll come back to
I
you
forgot
later.
the answer. So.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, Mr. Pine, it's lovely to see you again.
Good to see you again too.
I just wanted to note that this is so exciting because it's a real sustainable and measurable solution. That it may be short term, it may be something that we're just starting out on to embark upon, but this segment of housing definitely does need attention. My question is around the anticipatory strategies for the maintenance on some of these units. Is that something that you can see wrapping
Sure.
into this plan?
Yeah, we're actually looking at different models or different approaches because you're right. When we build these, if we own them, which is a possibility, we might own these ourselves as the sort of the Hastings Corporation or Renfrew County. We will have ongoing maintenance costs for these, and they will, as the units get older, they'll cost more. But there's also the other models where we have the Phil Spry model, where he's owns the building and maintains the units. That might be a way we might, and then support folks through rent supplements. So there's different kinds of approaches to it this is part of the business plan that we are developing, the details to give folks, but there's certainly, we'll have obligations going forward if we're going to continue to own units, but what else are we going to do that, so we may not contribute all that much in a capital way, perhaps, but we will have operating costs going forward for these units, no question. Yeah.
Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I do apologize. It's been a long week, and it's only Monday. I hate to see how my Tuesday meetings are going to go. But as we move down this path, and if funding is eventually to flow and these units start to get built out, what sort of things do you anticipate needing from partner municipalities, and how can we best prepare ourselves to partner with you as we pursue this 7 and 7?
That's really a great question. There's no doubt that if we start to move towards the construction phase, we'll be looking for municipal land. We're looking for anything that will drive the cost down of construction. But so we'll be looking at, for municipal land, we'll be looking where these buildings might be located on transit routes, those sorts of things. All of those questions will be part of it. If we're project managing the whole project as we're proposing for EOWC, we may be coming back and saying, we need costs to do the project management side of it. Things like legal costs and those sorts of things aren't eligible for subsidy normally. So that's where the local contribution comes in. But if we pool it all across the region, it's certainly going to be affordable. So land, ideas around the kind of construction, all of those things. I think what's going to be important is going to be working with your building departments, your CBOs, your building departments, to make sure we need to be as streamlined and as efficient as we can, because that'll help us keep the cost down too on the construction side. But you've got such a good reputation here. I think we're going to be in good shape.
Any other questions?
Can I turn it over to His Honor now?
Well, firstly, I'd like to thank you for being generous with your time. As warden of Hastings County, I'm pleased to be here. I want you to know that Hastings County is a strong, committed EOWC member. We know that a different approach to trying to solve the housing supply problem has to be found, and the 7 in 7 plan offers a chance to really make a profound difference. The EOWC is good at delivering big regional projects. Our broadband and cellular projects through the Eastern Ontario Regional Network are examples of solving problems region-wide. We are ready to take that experience and translate it into the 7 in 7 project. I am hopeful, we are hopeful, that your council sees the merit in this approach and will support our efforts to convince the federal and provincial governments to partner with us as well. We need both to participate. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And we have one more question, I think. Councillor Millette?
It's more of an observation and a comment, and I just wanted to thank you, Warden Mullen and Mr. Pine and the entire delegation. Mr. Pine mentioned he believes that the EOWC has some good cred on this, and I can attest to that. Anybody who was at the Roma conference just last month can attest to the fact that EOWC and this sort of an initiative is widely respected among that group. There was not only good cred, there was good buzz, and I think 7,000, while we would gladly do 14,000, I think we've seen as an example here, as Councillor Thompson and others, and Mr. Pine has also mentioned, we've seen how we can make it happen here. The examples of our tripartite housing developments here are an example of how it can be done. So I'm very excited, and thank you very much for coming. And I had asked that this presentation be made here after it was made to the county last month, and I really am excited about this. Now it's up to us to put the pressure on all of our senior levels of government to make this a reality, because this is possibly one of the most exciting solutions to a vexing problem that we all just wring our hands about, let's face it. But this is finally a blueprint for success. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Warden. I need a motion now, I guess, to receive the deputations by Hastings County CAO Jim Pine, Hastings County Warden Mullins, and EOWC Chair Peter Eman. Council presenting the EOWC 7 has 7 plan to be received. Councillor Chapman, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Need a motion to go in committee of the whole. Councillor Rising go committee of the whole to hear and consider reports passing recommendations and resolution with Councillor Carr in the chair. Moved by Councillor Enright Miller, Councillor Alsop, all in favor? Carried.
A reports. The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. 8A1 Green Task Force Terms of Reference Update, and it's ESEC-2023-002. And the resolution is that pursuant to Environmental Services Environmental Coordinators Report number ESEC-2023-02, council approved the terms of reference for the Green Task Force Committee. Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Any questions or comments? Councillor Millette.
Yes, this is more or less a housekeeping matter, Mr. Chair, and as is referenced in the report from Mr. DeCola, the terms of reference of the Green Task Force has evolved, as have the activities of the group, and I can proudly say that over the past 2-3 years, the Green Task Force has been responsible for some major initiatives, not only on the ground, but in our participation as a community in environmental initiatives, both provincially and nationally. So again, this is simply in keeping with our evolving nature of the Green Task Force, and I would just note that we, just as I was about to mention this, we've brought up we've organized another presentation for Earth Day at the Belleville Public Library coming up. Watch your calendars for that. We have a pretty impressive PowerPoint presentation of some of our accomplishments over the past couple of years. We've taken it on the road a couple of times to groups such as the Probus clubs, and we're proud of the accomplishments, and really much more proud of the wide-eyed amazement of some of the people that see what we're doing in our community with such a grassroots group. So any questions on the GTF, ask away, but thanks for this housekeeping matter.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. 8A2, delegation of authority for the execution of dedicated locator agreements under the Ontario Underground Infrastructure Notification Act, and report is GMES-2023-004. And the resolution reads that pursuant to General Manager Environmental Services report number GMES 2023-04, delegation of authority to the department head or designate of the department administering locates program for the execution of dedicated locator agreements under the Ontario Underground Infrastructure Notification Act, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2014-76 be prepared for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. 8A3, revised terms of reference and committee name, Economic Destination Development Committee, DEV 2023-02, and the resolution is that the Director of Economic Development report DEC DEV 2023-02, Council approve the amended terms of reference for the Economic and Destination Development Committee. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried. 8A4, request for proposal, ENG 2022-18, Consulting Engineering Services for Northeast Industrial Park Expansion, Municipal Class Environmental Assessment and Preliminary Design. ENG 2023-03, the resolution is that the request for proposal submission from TY Lin International Canada Incorporated be accepted for RFP-ENG 2022-18, request for proposal for consulting engineering services for Northeast Industrial Park Expansion, Municipal Class Environmental Assessment and Preliminary Design in the amount of $872,076 plus $113,369.88 HST for a total amount of $985,445.88, this being the most qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 85, OMAFRA Rural Economic Development RED Program Funding Application. Resolution is that pursuant to Director of Economic Development report number DEC DEV 2023-03, that council approve an application to the Rural Economic Development for a manufacturing business retention and expansion program, requesting a funding contribution of $51,024. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to consent items, council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from such consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. I'll start with Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
And Councillor Wright Miller.
No, thank you.
Mayor Ellis.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette.
8B1,
Okay, and I think that's okay. And that's it for that one. So if anybody else wants to jump on, then all right. So 8B1 is the open air burning bylaw, DFES 20. Is that 2302? Okay, 2302. That seems like a weird number. Anyway, yeah, I think it's 2023-2. The council received this report as information, moved by Councillor Millet. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Chatton. Councillor Millet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I had requested this prior to, I believe, the new year, but at the end of last year, once we had the first full year of burn permits and an assessment of the burning in the rural area, permitted burns, that is. And the impetus for asking for the report was I assume other members of council may or may not have had complaints or calls of concern from some residents about burning in the urban area. I know I have, and I've had 2 or 3 who've been rather constant in this regard, and in their defense, or to their credit, they were speaking up on behalf of themselves and others who may have health concerns, breathing concerns, and some of the burns that were happening in their neighborhoods were causing them some distress. On a day when they'd rather have their windows open, they, for instance, had to close their windows and put air conditioning on when they would have rather just had a fresh breeze. That, I guess, is never going to go away as long as we allow permitted burning in the urban area. The report, as we've seen from Dan Smith, our Deputy Fire Chief, he concludes that residents have been receptive to changes in the bylaw, and Belleville Fire staff regularly educate residents on the requirements of the burn bylaw. 1,200 permits were issued for the year, and they conclude that fire management continues to support the ability for residents to obtain burn permits. And I guess the end result of the report, aside from the fact that they have occasionally and more increasingly had to go attend to fires that were found in some homeless encampments in the area, where the individuals are not burning for recreation rather than they're burning for warmth or for cooking purposes. We're certainly not able to regulate any of those in those instances. And I spoke with the deputy on the weekend about this. They unfortunately have to extinguish the fires for safety, but I think there's a good lesson when they do attend, telling the folks here how to safely heat themselves and or seek shelter. That's a problem that's not going to be in any way addressed in the open air burning bylaw. I guess the message here is a continued message to the public that if you are going to burn, A, get a permit, B, be mindful of your neighbors, and particularly those with health concerns. Some of the people I've spoken to are reluctant to call to complain about these fires. They don't want to be known as the neighborhood snitch, a bad neighbor, whatever. But let's face it, if you're going to have a backyard fire, you're in an area that's close by other residences. You know that you see the smoke wafting over to a neighbor's place where you may have an elderly or neighbor or someone with health concerns. Give it a second thought, if you would. For as long as we're going to have this bylaw in place that permits this, we're going to have these issues. I guess the message is please be respectful, please do it in a responsible manner, and by all means, don't try it without a permit, because the fines are significant, and they will attend with full fire trucks and put your fire out in an embarrassing manner in your backyard. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? See none, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. Moving on to 8C, information items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from such consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. Councillor Brown. Anything for 8C? One, sorry. Okay, Councillor Chadden.
Yes, thank you. 8C2, yeah,
8C2, there's A and B there.
sorry, A.
A. Okay,
No, thank you.
all right, Councillor Thompson.
No, thanks.
Mayor Ellis.
No, thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
Okay, so I guess all items be received except for 8C2A. Get a motion, Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. So 8C2A is request the province of Ontario to have school boards become responsible for conducting their own trustee elections, or at a minimum, municipalities be compensated by the school boards for overseeing such trustee elections. And it's February 1st, 2023 resolution from the town of Deep River, moved by Councillor Chatton. Can I get a seconder to get on the floor? Councillor Millette, Councillor Chatton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. My point to bringing this out is that the credibility and legitimacy of public representation does hang in the balance. And something like this could facilitate further dissolution of school boards across the province to the detriment of public education. Having the election of trustees remain a combined forum with municipal elections would ensure that the trustees who already face exclusion as municipally elected representatives of community, it would ensure that they are taken as seriously as other municipally elected officials. I can just give an example. Very recently, I was just told by a member of the public, welcome to politics, and I had to remind them, I've already been in politics for 4 years. It does lend to the credibility of the station of being a trustee that we combine these two elections. So I would vehemently oppose having them separated. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And this is just a motion to receive it. All in favor? It's carried. I need a motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Bylaws, following the first and second reading of bylaws, member may debate any bylaw under the consideration. I need a motion for first reading of bylaws 2023-33, 2023-34, 2023-35, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? Carried. Second reading of bylaws and discussion 2023-33, 34, 35, moved by Councillor Alsop, Councillor Enright Miller. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Third and final reading of bylaws 2023-33, 34, and 35, moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Brown. All in favor? Carried. New business. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Ellis. Each of us received notifications from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Recently, they sent one out encouraging municipalities to consider passing a resolution ahead of the provincial budget, calling on the province to end homelessness. So I have a motion here that I'd like to introduce. Whereas the homelessness crisis has taken a devastating toll on families and communities, undermining a healthy and prosperous Ontario, and whereas the homelessness crisis is a result of the underinvestment and poor policy choice of successive provincial governments, and whereas homelessness require a range of housing, social service, and health solutions from the provincial government, whereas the homelessness is felt most at the level of local government and the residents that they serve, whereas municipalities are doing their part but do not have the jurisdictional resources, capacity, or tools to address this complex challenge, and whereas leadership and urgent action is needed from the provincial government on an emergency basis to develop, resource, and implement a comprehensive plan to prevent, reduce, and ultimately end homelessness in Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Belleville calls on the provincial government to urgently acknowledge that homelessness in Ontario is a social, economic, and health crisis, commit to ending homelessness in Ontario, work with AMO and a broad range of community, health, Indigenous, economic partners to develop, resource, and implement an action plan to achieve this goal, and further that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community, Social Services, the Minister of Health, Minister Todd Smith, MPP Bay of Quinte, Parliamentary Assistant Rick Burries, MPP Hastings, Lennox and Addington, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Millet. Discussion?
Can I just suggest just a small amendment that, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for circulation to Ontario municipalities, or is that implicit, or is that included just going to AMO?
Councillor Carr?
Yep, certainly we can have this circulated to the other municipalities as well.
Okay, we'll amend that to that then.
Thank you.
Any questions or any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Motions, notice of motions, announcements. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I got one proclamation. I'd like to proclaim March 6th to March 12th as Violence Awareness and Random Act of Kindness Week. The lives of many citizens in the city of Belleville have been directly or indirectly impacted. The ravages and violence of many Canadians fall prey to senseless acts of violence every day, which we hear about each and every day. This way, this 27th annual Violence Awareness and Random Act of Kindness Week, and everyone is encouraged to perform random acts of kindness not only during the special week, but throughout the year. Belleville Sign, Bridge Street Bridge, and the fire station garden will be lit in light blue recognition of Random Act of Kindness, March 6th to the 12th.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. March is also Endometriosis Awareness Month. Approximately 1 in 10 girls and women, as well as unmeasured numbers of non-binary and transgender individuals, will develop endometriosis. Due to a lack of awareness and education, it takes between 7 to 12 years to get a diagnosis. The Belleville Sign, Bridge Street Bridge, and Fire Station No. 1 Memorial Garden will all be lit yellow as of March 27th to help create more awareness for endometriosis and hopefully draw unity within the community. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
I also have a proclamation. From the 19th of March until the 25th is National Poison Prevention Week, to draw attention to the causes of poisoning and how to adopt poison prevention strategies. Ontario's Poison Centre is a nonprofit telephone health promotion service which operates 24/7 to support those with possible toxic exposure. They work with their community partners on an awareness campaign to inform, educate, and promote safer storage of poisons in the home, which will empower families to act safely. The Belleville Sign, Bridge Street Bridge, and Fire Station 1 Memorial Garden will be lit green during this time to help spread awareness.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Millet?
Thank you. It's a busy month. March is also Amyloidosis Month, Awareness Month, sorry. Amyloidosis is a group of diseases caused by deposits of abnormal proteins known as amyloid in one or more organs of the body. If left untreated, can cause organ failure and even death. But it is often misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. This month we pay particular heed to this group of diseases, and on March 15th, the Belleville Sign, Bridge Street Bridge, and Fire Station Gardens will be lit red for the cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millet. Councillor Enright Miller?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an announcement. It's a busy month. On behalf of the City of Belleville, Councillor Kelly and myself, I'm inviting residents to the city's International Women's Day event, being held March 8th, and doors will open at 11:30. This event is happening at Loyola Adult School, located at 250 Sydney Street. 4 women from our community will share their journey to Canada, and we will have musicians from 2 international students who will showcase their talents. Again, the doors open at 11:30. This will be an educational luncheon, so please join us for International Women's Day, Wednesday, March 8th. Thank you very much.
Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. I don't have a proclamation. I think they've all been taken care of. This past Saturday, I brought greetings on behalf of yourself and members of council at the coldest night of the year at Grace Inn. over $65,000 has been raised thus far, and donations are being accepted until March 31st. So I'd encourage the community to consider a donation if you visit cnoy.org, select Belleville, and make a donation. Their target is $80,000. We have a month to go, and hopefully we'll see that target met. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Okay, I need a confirmatory bylaw, a resolution that bylaw number 2023-36, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on February 27th, 23, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 27th day of February 23. Councillor Brown, or Councillor Chatton, Councillor Alsop, all in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Millette, Councillor Enright Miller, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.